What's good? What's good? What's good? Comic book family, and welcome to season two. Let me say that right. Season 2 of Back to Basics, y'all. A comic book podcast. My goodness, I can't get it right, but I'm gonna get it right. But welcome, y'all, to the most amazing and innovative comic book podcast in the world. I said it, in the world. We are that podcast that looks at comics from different angles and gives people a chance to connect with creatives like no other. We are a team whose passion for comics is unparalleled, and we found each other while selling comics, and it has morphed into this experience that extends our reach to highlight the most amazing personalities in the business. So, let me introduce myself. My name is Miss Ebony Keys from the Sunshine State, and I'm proud to be here with you all to throw some education your way while I captivate your minds that bring us back to basics, y'all. This trio has been working hard to change the game, and we don't do it without the support of our community, friends, and family. And
Hey y'all, this is Gen X. I'm your Papi Chulo of comics from Brooklyn, New York. I currently live in Baltimore, Maryland, by way of parents from the island of Puerto Rican, which is also Puerto Rico. I'm so excited to share my opinions and thoughts around comics and how they relate to our identities. I'm also an educator, if you didn't know that, by trade, a businessman by discipline, and a hero all the time. So I love the community. We've had such a great pleasure of kind of building this camaraderie and collectivism in our group and in our community. And I want to pass it off to my friend, Tempo.
And that's your boy Tempos, Brooklyn Most Wanted. You know who it is. I come and I bring comics and culture to your ear. You know that's what I do. And let's get back to basics, y'all. Let's get it.
let's go. All right. So we started this podcast to ensure that the sanctity and nostalgia we have for these heroes, villains, and everything else in between is seen through a different lenses. We believe that the stories told are a reflection of the human experience, and we go deep, deep, y'all. I mean, deep. We talk about issues around race, ethnicity, gender, mental health, and other human challenges. We also highlight amazing artists, writers, and publishing companies, known and unknown, by interviewing them and giving them their shine. You can count on us to tackle themes and also make sure we're always bringing you back to basics. So, before we go any further, we need you to do us a huge favor, y'all. A huge favor. Your job. If you choose to accept it, please tell everyone, subscribe to our channel, this channel, Back to Basics, y'all. Like, share, and most importantly, follow us on Instagram. Each of us are personalities in our own right and communicate through Instagram primarily and post often. We ask for your support and we look forward to the dialogue today. And every time we pick up the mic, we need you to engage. Engage. This project and podcast is a direct result of our work as comic book sellers, ambassadors, and collectors. We felt we needed something different, authentic, positive, and pure again. The thing about a thing that makes you time warp and smile about the hobby that you love and that we love too. You know that, right? We also want it to be different from any other content out there. We want to be professors and students within the space, always learning from each other and bringing things back to the great days of collecting, back to basics. So, today we have a great show for you, which you already know that because we always bring the goodness. Always bring the goodness. Our show is streaming live on our YouTube channel and Twitch. Secondly, we want you very active in the chat. So I want to see that chat hopping, jumping and hopping today with the content and our guests. We have special guests today, and we're excited about highlighting her dope man. She's amazing. Expertise. She's bad. She's a bad mama jamma. So let's get it.
Without further ado, here we go. We're going to give you a promo and this is our guest, if you didn't know by our thumbnail from YouTube. So here we go.
Yes, that is our girl. That is our girl, Caitlin Yarsky. Now, she is a comic book illustrator and game designer, y'all, based in Portland, Oregon. Her first two series were Sean Lewis's Coyotes, published in November of 2017, and Bliss, published in July of 2020 at Image Comics. She was also the main artist of Jeff Lemire's Black Hammer Reborn, which is a series I love, at Dark Horse, drew at DC one-shot called Olympus Rebirth with Becky Cloonan and Michael Conrad, and has since drawn Catwoman and backups for Shazam. She's been busy, y'all, very busy, and it shows with her amazing work. She loves fantasy and science fiction in all forms and spends her downtime playing music with local bands. She is currently working for DC and has started writing and drawing her own series. And Jen will start our conversation, y'all.
All right, y'all. Well, I'm excited because I got to meet Caitlin. We just had a reunion about 2 seconds ago, maybe a minute ago, before all this. And I met Caitlin at Baltimore Comic-Con. So if you haven't been to Baltimore Comic-Con, definitely come through. I literally turned the corner and saw Caitlin, and I geeked out a little bit. So hopefully you won't see me fanboy or geek out too much today, but I'm so excited to have Caitlin. So I'm going to pull Caitlin into the stream. Hey, Caitlin, how are you?
Hi, Helen.
Yeah, let me reconfigure this. Here we go. We're going to put you at the top because you are the focus for today. We got a whole bunch of folks in the chat kind of basically saying, hey, what's up? So just want to give props to everyone. Hello. And we'll do more Q&A. So get your questions ready for Caitlin. But Caitlin, I just want to jump in because I want to make sure that we utilize this time to get to know you better. And as you know, most of our questions in our podcasts are really sorted and kind of having conversations, particularly about our artists and who they are. So tell us a little bit about yourself and share a little about who you are, particularly your background, your upbringing, what brought you, what are some of your identities in which they somehow influence your work?
Sure. Well, I was born in Brooklyn, and I was there until I was about 6, and we moved out to Nyack for a year and then Long Island. So I was mostly in Huntington after that. And then, and my parents divorced when I was like a baby. And so I have like 2 sets of step parents. And yeah, so it's a complicated like family tree. It's kind of nuts, but I mostly spent time from like 11 or 12 on with my dad and my stepmom on Long Island. And then, and my dad, I'm really close to my dad. He was a musician when I was growing up, so I got to listen to a lot of music. And I'm a really heavy sleeper, I think, because of that. Like we had like a studio apartment in Brooklyn when I was little, and he would like play and sing really loud. And so I sleep through fire alarms. It's not good. So I just went to upstate New York for school. I went to RIT, and I ended up staying there for a video game job. And while I was in Rochester, New York, I was like looking for, creative outlets other than the game stuff, and found musicians to play with and other artists. And we all kind of like collaborated and did projects together. And I did a lot of painting and murals, and so just trying to find out figure out what I wanted to do, and then eventually kind of found my way into comics and decided that was where I wanted to focus things. So
nice.
Awesome. I didn't know we were fellow Brooklynites. Wow.
I know when you said that, I was all excited.
What part?
I know.
Well, I was born in Coney Island Hospital, but we lived in Kensington.
Mm-hmm.
It's like in the south. Yeah.
Flatbush.
I grew up in what I say is pre-gentrified Fort Greene, because it didn't look like that.
Oh
like
yeah.
it does now. Yeah, Fort
neighborhoods
Greene
are all really nice now. It's crazy.
It's way different.
Yeah. I definitely couldn't afford to live there, but it's gorgeous. Fellow Brooklynite, I'm so glad that you're here. I definitely wanted to also kind of like convey I know that you said you've been involved in a lot from your bio with music. You've done some adjunct professoring, and some of these things kind of spill. I can see in your artwork. Talk a little about how that really influences the things that you do outside of comic books, and maybe how they help you creatively kind of reset and or be inspired.
Sure. Well, I mean, honestly, I think music has had as much, if not more, of an impact on me than fine art. I grew up with a lot of music. I grew up with a lot of creative people in my life, and I just it's just part of who I am, and I've taken a lot of inspiration from a lot of storytelling in music. Like, it's kind of the same. It's kind of a similar. It's like parallel to illustration, it's just on the music side. Like, I like a lot of singer-songwriters, and they tell stories and they pick on other characters and things like that. So I think that's part of it. But yeah, I kind of had a lot of inspiration come from all over the place. I started off doing like fine art and everything, and so that was kind of the beginning of that. And I started off doing like figure drawing and oil painting and sculpture and stuff. So whereas like a lot of people, I think, have like most of their inspiration comes from other comic book artists. Mine mostly came from other people outside of comics, and so I've only in the last like 5 or 6 years really been like, getting more inspiration from people in the industry.
Cool.
That's
So
awesome.
just to follow up, I think I'm very interested in how you perfected the way that you do your artwork, because it's very unique. So you said you went to RIT specifically. What would you major in again?
It was illustration. But I started off doing fine art stuff in high school. There was this school called the Huntington School of Fine Arts. It was like an after school program thing, and I would go there like it was 3 days a week, and it was 3 hours a day, and they were like it was amazing. It was before like trying to make a living becomes part of your whole part of the whole thing, and so it was just like this pure just creativity and like learning, and it was kind of like that's how I got into art schools, is I made a portfolio from those classes, and then got into RIT and went and did illustration. So
Nice.
Cool.
I bet you
Simple,
still have
I'll pass it off
that.
to you.
I bet you still have that portfolio, right?
I don't know, maybe somewhere. It would be like, I mean, there were like literal slides. Like, I'm old, you guys. Like, it'd be like slides that you use projector to watch. Like, it's like a physical portfolio of like plastic slides. But it's probably somewhere. But
that's awesome. No, but I was reading up, and I seen that you done a lot more than just comic books, and you taught for a while. Tell me a little bit about your adventures with video games. Like, how does that industry work? How did you get into that? And how does it, if it does, incorporate with comic books?
Yeah, so I got into games when I graduated college. My boyfriend at the time was working at this company that was only like 6 people or something, and they were looking for more artists. And so I kind of put my hat in the ring, and I did an animation test for them, and he helped me like learn how to do animation and stuff like that. And so I learned a ton on the job, and it was really lucky because it was like right in the beginning of that company, like they were just starting, so everybody was learning stuff on the job. So I got to learn a lot about like digital art and typography, and like working on a Wacom tablet and doing all these things that like I knew a little bit in school, but I'd mostly been working traditionally and everything. But I mean, honestly, I think most of the jobs available for artists in general are in games, because games is just a freaking huge industry. It's like bigger than movies, I think. It's like a huge. So that's if you want like a steady thing and you're doing creative, like if you want to draw, games is a pretty solid place to go. I mean, it's really competitive too, but that's how I've been able to like be alive. So.
I mean, it's awesome because more than the video games, you have mobile apps, and you actually help create learning for kids. Mm-hmm. How did that go? Like, how did you actually get into that? Because that was like, I read that, I was like, wow, she made a game for kids to learn, and it scales by levels. Like, how did that come up?
Yeah, that was Adaptive Mind. So it's all just from contract work, like, you go from one job to another, and if the project ends, and then you end up going to a different company. So you just apply everywhere. And nice. So I've done a lot of different things. I like not this last job, but the job before that was like casino and gambling games, which is like, I didn't feel great about that, but I was like, I'll take what I can, it's it is what it is. And so yeah, like I've done like all around the spectrum. It's just been like, I've had a lot of experience in like mobile games, and then like most recently I worked on I think I can say it now because they announced it, but there's a new Contra game coming out. And I got to do like environment concept art and stuff for that, which was really fun, but it was like, it's like a totally different thing than like educational kids games, it's like a whole, so yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
That's pretty cool.
Did you say Contra? Whoa, I love that game. I love that game. Oh my god.
And it's sad because I just left that company and I have all this cool art I really want to show, and I can't because it's under NDA still, like it's not out yet. So I'm like, I can say what I worked on it because they announced the game, but it's like I can't show any of that stuff to like new prospective employers or anything because so.
Yeah, out of respect for the NDA, I was gonna bring it up, but I decided not to. But following up that, are you an anime fan? Because I know did you work for WayForward, right?
Yeah, that was the company I just left. Yeah, so they I got into anime in like the beginning of college.
Nice.
Or like end of high school, beginning of college. But then the problem was like I saw all of the I feel like I saw all the best stuff like in one go. Like everybody showed me like Cowboy Bebop and Evangelion and FLCL and all this stuff, and I was just like, oh my god, this is amazing. And then I like joined the anime club at RIT, and it was so bad. Like they just loved everything. Like didn't matter what the quality was. Like they played stuff and everybody was like laughing too much at like every joke, and I was just like, oh no. Like so I don't know. I kind of got soured on anime. I'm sure that there's really great stuff still out there and coming out all the time, but I was like, oh,
The important thing is that you watch the back in the day stuff. Trigun and all those Cowboy Bebops, because that's what really matters. Now it's more mainstream, and I can get more into these guys know I'm a big anime fan. So when I see that you had worked for them, I was like, wow, okay, because they kind of make a lot of anime games.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
So believe me, I have a lot of questions, but out of respect, I'm not gonna go too deep because I know we have a lot of stuff to do. But I am very interested on that path that you had.
Okay.
It must have been fun.
Yeah.
You can tell Tempos is definitely geeking out internally.
He is.
He's got the bust to the scene. That's hilarious.
That's what
I
we're
grew up
doing
a
here.
Ninja Scroll. I'm a Ninja Scroll, Akira,
Did you ever watch
really
Kenshin?
old, though.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I loved Kenshin. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Have you watched any live actions?
I love the live action one.
Okay.
It's so good, and I keep trying to get people into it, and they're just like, "This is cheesy." I'm like, "Shut up."
It's hard when they mess up live actions, and then when actually a good one comes out, it's actually hard to get someone into it because of other animes, live actions. But you still got to try, right? That's what anime fans do. We try to get you involved.
Yep.
Tippo's anime hour.
Okay. I digress then.
No. I love to see you geek out like this. This is amazing. This is so cool. I will say, if you want to watch something, I just showed Tempos yesterday, and Miss Ebony Keith, Blue Eyed Samurai.
I hear that's really good.
Amazing.
Yeah,
it might bring you back to anime.
It's on Netflix, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure you can find it online as well, anywhere where
Let's stick with Netflix. Catch it on Netflix, guys. But I know Ebony had a couple questions, right?
Yes, I do. Caitlin, I love your style, your creativity, from your comic book art, and I've seen some of your like artistic prints that you had posted, and you you went full-fledged in the video games. How do you keep your authentic style and deliver on the expectations from corporate? And do you choose certain publishers based on your ability to create freely?
That's a good question. I think that's one of the things I struggled with a little bit when I was working with DC is I was trying to fit my style into a house look somehow, even though I know that they don't have as much of a house look as like Marvel, but they still have a little bit of one. And I was like,
right.
I didn't want to go to like Bliss-y, you know what I mean? Like where like Bliss
Right.
was like it was very me, but it was also like a little intense and like exaggerated everything. And I was just like, I don't know if they'll want that. And so like, I think if and when I work with them again on anything, I'm gonna try and just do that, like do the style that I like to do with Image, because I felt like I was allowed to do that with Image.
Right.
But I don't think I wasn't allowed to do that with DC. I think I was just scared of rocking the boat too much, you know, and then being like, what is this? You know?
Right.
So
Okay.
yeah. So yeah. So I guess I think like Image has felt the most free, just because it's like, you know, they print your stuff, but they're very hands off. So it's just like you and the writer, and you're just doing whatever, you know, you really want. But Dark Horse has been really great to work with too. They're, you know, very similar, except they're more, you know, hands on with the editing and everything. But
Okay.
yeah.
We was just
Nice.
talking
I had
about
to
that
showcase
yesterday.
your art.
Yeah.
That art is amazing.
Yeah,
It's
Thanks.
amazing.
we
I want that one. I want them all, and I'm gonna send them to you.
They're all
And
for
if you can
sale.
sign them, I know they are. I'm gonna buy them all. And she's wink
Yeah.
wink sign, please. I'm just kidding. So I'm gonna put them on the wall.
So I have a question. Coyotes. So I read up on Coyotes, Volume 1, Volume 2, and it's a real good story. Like you get into it, 13-year-old girl, she has swords, and it's about what it's about. Has there been anything brought up about making that like a cartoon or a movie? Because I could see that being in the screen, on the big screen.
Yeah, it was optioned for like 5 years with Monkey Paw, which is Jordan Peele's
Nice.
company. I don't know what the state of that is. They dropped it last year, I think, but I think that there's still some rumbling about it. So I will definitely keep people updated if I ever hear anything more. But
Definitely.
yeah, I think it would be awesome, especially since there's so little representation for like, you know, like a Latina heroine, especially like a little kid, and like, you know, the feminist messages in it are great. Like I just think that it would be a perfect time for that. So I don't
Right.
know. I mean, I'm sure that there's so much for people to choose from. It might
I
never
think
happen, but
I believe that there's something in those books for everybody. It's a good story. I definitely read it, and I was telling the guys yesterday, like, yo, like I could see this in the screen. Like I could see this, and it's like this badass little girl that's, you know, 10 toes down, and she's taking charge and being a boss. I was like, okay, I can see this. Especially
totally.
when other people, like you said, this generation nowadays, I could see a lot of people getting into this kind of book in the big screen.
Yeah.
I won't be surprised if Amazon reach out to you.
I hope so. We'll see.
Good luck with that. It'd be
Thanks.
nice.
Yeah. That's everybody's dream, really, is like, because there's not a lot of opportunity to survive just on comics. You know, everybody kind of wants the option or the pilot to happen for their thing, because that's where the money's at, you know. So
Is it
like,
hard, like jumping into like different things,
what do you mean?
like comic books, video games, other industries that you're trying to get into?
Yeah, I mean, I compartmentalize that stuff. Like on my
Nice.
site, I have like two different pages, like one for comics and one for games. So like when I'm applying places, I can just direct them to the game stuff. So, but yeah, it's a very distinctly different thing. So it's a bit tricky to try to juggle both.
I can't do it. I try to do the podcast, and going to work is difficult for me. Having a 9 to 5 and then dipping into because it's a different reality. At this place, I could be myself, and then when I work with corporate America, I have to be this whole different person for someone else. You know,
Right.
so for you, it's like you have the freedom, right, to open your mind and be able to do these things in these different industries. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot less creative freedom in games, really, unless you're like the primary concept artist for something, or you know, like that's a very creatively fulfilling job. But I think like there's so many different moving parts in games, and in that train of like there's a lot that you have to answer to, and a lot of style stuff that you don't really have control over. And so I think that's why I got into comics, because like you're basically making your own movie, like with with a few people, it's like you have so much control over what you're saying and the style that you're working in, you kind of feel like, oh, I get to like be the costume designer and like the lighting person and the casting direct, like you have so much control. It's just really fun. So
that's pretty cool.
So jump start off of that, as a creative, what would be your like? What would be something that you would be excited to do next? Because you've done a lot, and you've talked about being optioned for movies as being a part of like the wish and dream, right? So what does that look like for you? I think that's a really interesting. I know folks get into it because of the passion, but like we also need to make money, and if you can make a lot of money, that's even better. But what for you would be like a good kind of fusion of all those things that are best case scenarios for you? What would be like an amazing project or work that you'd like to tap into?
I mean, the only reason I mentioned the option as being something everybody is kind of hoping for is just because it would fund you working on more comics. You know what I mean? Like it just makes it easier for you to keep doing what you want to do. Like, so so it's not like necessarily my dream for something to turn into a screen project. It's more just like that would fund me doing more comics and not having to worry so much, But as far as like a dream a dream comic, like I'm kind of doing it right now. I'm working on a Dark Horse miniseries that I'm writing and drawing myself. So
nice.
That's pretty great. Like it feels really good, and it feels like I'm kind of able to like push my style more into like what I think is like feels right for me, which is really fun. And I guess that's for something that's like already out there though, like something that exists, like a property out there, like maybe. I mean, definitely the Sandman. I'm obsessed with the Sandman. So like, I would happily do anything Sandman related.
Nice.
I don't know if that'll ever happen, but it would be great. Yeah.
That's Neil Gaiman.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nice.
I think I owned every trade paperback because I couldn't find the actual book anymore.
Right.
So I geeked off of that. That was the most amazing run, comic book run. Mm-hmm. It was so good. Science fiction behind it was amazing. The fantasy part, crazy.
So that would mean you have to work with, because doesn't DC runs Sandman? So you have to get back into DC world.
Yeah, I mean, I basically told them I was taking a break because I wanted to do my own creator-owned project. So, it's definitely possible that I could come back and work on some more Wonder Woman stuff or, Shazam stuff. But yeah, for me, like my heart's in like Sandman world, and I think that's Black Label now. It used to be Vertigo, but so it's Black Label. So it's a different person than I would normally that I've worked with because I've worked on the Wonder Woman side of things. But yeah, I mean, it's possible. I don't want to get my hopes up, but it's possible.
It's gonna happen. Awesome. Speaking into existence, you got this.
Well, hopefully it does come, and we wish you the best with that one, because that'd be awesome to read. Because I'm definitely a Sandman fan, especially with the Netflix series that came out. I mean, it was like on point with the first episode all the way to the end. Again,
yeah, especially the death episode with the what is it called? The Sound of Her Wings, right? Where she was going around and like, taking people's souls and stuff. That was really amazing.
Yeah. That's funny because it's better than a lot of these movies that's coming out nowadays with superhero movies. So they did it right. That's one of the things with anime. Like if you don't do it right, people are not going to watch it. You do it right, and we're going to put faith in it. We're going to watch everything you put out. And Netflix been doing a great job with that, I believe.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, isn't the Avatar: The Last Airbender is coming out soon?
Yes,
yes.
And they just announced Dragon Ball Z. They're gonna do Dragon Ball Z. So they put in a lot of stakes, and I think they're gonna do well.
I hope y'all have seen the video of the New Year's Day Dragon Ball Z live action that they did. Please look it up. It is amazing. They use a screen in the back so it looks like they're actually fighting and jumping up in the air. It's insane. Well, Adrian AQ has a question for you. He says, what titles or characters do you have or ownership of?
I guess the two image series that I worked on. So Coyotes and Bliss and the characters in there. And I think that's it. I think the other stuff is some of it's work for hire, like DC stuff is I definitely wouldn't own any of those things. So I'm trying to think of what else. Yeah, I think it's just the image stuff so far.
If you could give us a glimpse of what that looks like for obviously working, contract versus kind of owning your stuff, what does that allow you to do? I know we've heard about it through the storied history of image. How's that kind of, in your eyes and in your experience, has been kind of transformative, or maybe there's some pluses or minuses? Like right now, you're writing and drawing and doing all the illustrations. So what does that look like?
I think it just, again, it makes you feel more free to play with style and to kind of own the look and feel and kind of do what you want with something, rather than feeling like you have to honor the legacy of another character. Like, Wonder Woman is like, you can't, there's not much you can do with her. Like, that's different. I mean, I'm not that I would want to, I just mean like, if she has like a whole history and you don't want to mess with that. So like,
right.
And again, it's like you get a little bit of ownership. Like I got to design some of the different gods and stuff, and that was really fun. Of course that'll change with different artists and different series, but that was cool. And then, but yeah, just in terms of like, if you have the rights to something, then you feel like it's really yours, and you can do whatever you feel is right for it. So like Bliss and Coyote stuff, I got to kind of just do what felt right for me. And then the same thing with this series. It's just like, it's great because I'm kind of exploring what I want to do, rather than being like, oh, I have to fit into this like specific model, the way this character has been portrayed in the past and everything.
Cool. Yeah. I'm gonna pass it to Miss Ebony.
It's mine. Okay, I got something. All right, so Caitlin. So when you're transitioning from between different projects, how is that process like, and how do you detach yourself from previous projects to make sure that you're fresh for the next
one? Yeah, I don't know. It's very like case by case, right? But like for Black Hammer, that was a big job. Like I was working on Bliss when I got the Black Hammer job, and so that was like, trying to figure out what style to work in for that, and looking at the other artists that had worked on it before, and trying to figure out like what would feel like my style, but also fit in with the world and not just be like a total, change. So right. Yeah, I think it's just, you just feel it out. There's nothing really like, there's no set way to do it. You just kind of, you look at how you want to portray your own stuff. And I do switch styles a little bit depending on what I'm working on. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it depends on the vibe you're going for. Like for this next one, I'm definitely going to go a little bit more dark fantasy, like early Jim Henson stuff, like Dark Crystal and nice. Labyrinth and things like that, because that was right. What I was like super into when I was a kid.
Yes.
And yeah, like this. Hold on, there's this book. Let me get it. 1 sec. This was like my Bible growing up, but it's this fairies book, and it's Brian Froud and Alan Lee, and Brian Froud is the art director for Labyrinth and Dark Crystal, and Alan Lee was the main concept artist for the Lord of the Rings movies. But they just like worked together on this thing in the 70s, and my stepmom had that book and she gave it to me, and it's like amazing.
Nice.
So yeah, so I'm hoping to kind of bring a little bit of that, that stuff into
fantasy.
Right.
Yeah. Because
that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by what you just said, which was like you switch styles. And I've looked at your work and I can see it. Like it's like you have your own unique style. I'm not sure if maybe you liken yourself to others, or maybe there were other influences in the industry that really lended to, your unique techniques, because it literally is unique currently in the comic book industry. There's something organic, and also at the same time there's that fantasy piece. So as far as that's concerned, I'm interested to hear more about how you transition from one style to another, or do you experiment? How does that process with that? Because we have some folks who are artists here when they do things live stream, which is amazing. And then I've seen them morph in ways that in their art techniques. So how have you kind of adopted? You said it depends on the project.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what feels right for that specific story, you know? So like you wouldn't want like a dark fairy fantasy kind of vibe for like a Wonder Woman series, right? So you kind of want to pick and choose what you're influenced by when you're working on something. And like, you know, what helps me is like finding reference of other artists and worlds and movies and things, and kind of putting together like a mood board of like what you want to use as like as inspiration while you're working on a specific project. So like there was this one that was very like cyberpunk, and so I kind of, it was only a 10-page thing, but I ended up using like a lot of images from Blade Runner 2049 and like all sorts of like kind of cyberpunky things, and kind of mashing them together into this big reference folder thing, and kind of using that as like a basis of like, okay, this is kind of what I'm going for. You know, you still want it to look like your work, but you also want to like make sure that it has that kind of punk vibe to it, you know? And so yeah. I don't know if that answers the question.
No, yeah. No, I think when as artists, I think you create your own methodology, but people think, oh, we're gonna stick to this type and style. But you're right, it depends on how you evolve, and also, you know, throughout the years, how you adapted and what projects come around your way that influence you too, right? So have you had any quote unquote babies that you were like, oh, someone is taking over the helm of my work, or you didn't want to let it go because it was yours? Is there any title or maybe even run that you were just like, oh man?
I mean, maybe Black Hammer, I would have liked to keep going with it because it was great, but I don't feel too particularly like possessive of anything right now. Maybe if like, maybe in the future that might happen, but I've kind of been pretty, I haven't really been that possessive about different IPs. I'm just kind of like,
okay,
I do my part, and then people can go on and do their thing, and you know, we're all, and it's nice because I feel like it's a competitive industry, but we also all kind of have each other's backs and want each other to succeed, you know. So I have this art. There's a studio called Helioscope that I go to occasionally to work out of in Portland, and they're all, you know, comic book artists and writers and stuff, and we all like share each other's work on social media and try to support each other, and it's nice.
Well, I'm excited for your next upcoming projects. I don't know if you can say anything to it, but I would love for you to talk a little about one. When I saw Beelzebub, I was like, what is happening here? And I just wanted, if you could just give us a little inkling about, you know, what that is, what maybe a teaser or whatever you'd like to share, maybe the premise.
Sure.
So again, I'll put it up on the stream so people can see who Beelzebub is. So let me, here we go, right here on the right, I believe, right?
Yep, top right. Yep.
Top right.
So the general concept is revolves around a guy who's a demon hunter but he's also a demon, and so he's kind of been coerced into hunting his own people, which is kind of messed up. So there's a bunch of like, he's kind of an anti-hero type character. It's in this world where there are all these like, you know, demon refugees, kind of almost like, you know, Men in Black, where there are people who like look like people but they're actually aliens, right? It's kind of like that, where like there are lots of demons like who have escaped hell, which is like this tyrannical place that, you know, imprisons everybody, and so they've escaped, a few of them, and they live, you know, as people. And so he's tasked with hunting them down, and having been one of the people who like escaped, it's like a big conflict for him. And so he's got a kid, and she's half demon, and that brings a whole thing into it. And you know, so these demons that I'm drawing right now are going to be like friends of his or people that he has to hunt down, that like that's their final form, you know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty cool.
It does.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right.
Tempo.
So
You know me, I got questions for days. It's like
I
I
know.
might as well get miles out. I did want to piggyback on what you and Jen was talking about with that aspect. So let's say if you were talking to people, you got this group and y'all all get together. Have anybody ever came up to you was like, hey, I'm doing this, I would like to check it out, maybe be a mentor? Has that something ever came up?
I mean, we don't necessarily work together on projects at the studio, but we do like sometimes give each other, tips about things, or we give each other feedback if we ask for it. It's very like, if it's very case by case, like, if you're working on something and you need people to look at it and, be like, oh, can you come over here and let me know if this looks weird, or we, sometimes we read, I've had a few people, friends read some of the scripts that I've been writing for this series, because I'm terrified, because I've never written a series before or anything. So I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing, help. And then they read it and give me notes, and that's been really nice. Yeah, so it's kind of piecemeal like that. We just give each other support when we can. And, sometimes people need reference for certain poses, so it'll be the middle of the day, and, Steve Lieber will be like, oh, I need people to, can you guys get together and like, you do this, and then I do that, and then you turn around and you do this, and then you look really mad, and like we do like act out a little scene, and he takes pictures so he has reference for it. So we've been doing stuff like that too.
That sounds fun.
Yeah,
that's cool, because I know, like you said, it's competitive out there for artists, and probably there's some that don't want to show too much because the next person might got the similar idea and y'all going for the same project. So I'm pretty sure you kind of bumped heads with a lot of people, I'm guessing, huh? Trying to get into the industry.
I mean, it hasn't really been like that. I have one of my closest friends like was working on a similar project that I was at DC, and like she was just like, oh, you can have that thing, I don't care about it. And I was just like, okay, like not that she was like giving it to me, but she was like, we were both working on a similar thing, and I was like, oh, I hope I'm not like stepping on your toes working on this thing. And she's like, oh no, I don't care. And it's there's room enough for everybody. We just and there's so many different parts of the industry like that are separate from each other. There's like web comics, and there's like younger young adult stuff, and then there's just like more mainstream like DC and Marvel, and there's more indie. So it's like we're all over the place in the studio. So I don't think anybody's really on anybody's toes.
That's cool. That's good to hear. Then at least everybody can eat, quote unquote.
Right.
Well, we try.
I mean, it's similar to what you do. We do podcasting, and unfortunately, it's not bumping heads, but we do similar or try to do different things, but it's counteracting what other people are doing. So I'll get messages like, hey, I see that you're doing this project and this and that. It's like, yeah, I understand that you're trying to do the same thing, but it's totally different. It has nothing to do. We're just doing our best to be out there.
Yeah.
Everybody has room to eat. There's room to eat for every industry out there. People don't see that though sometimes, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's definitely natural to like worry about that too, because you don't want to be accused of like copying somebody. Like I've had that same fear about the writing stuff. I'm just like, oh, I hope this isn't too close to this thing, or I hope this isn't more like you worry about that a lot. But as long as I think you're doing it in your own style and you're not ripping anybody off, it's hard to tell, right, the difference sometimes. Like you're just like, oh, is this my thing? But it's like, you're like, okay, well, nobody owns demons in general. Like nobody, like there's, what I mean? You can be like, well, this is just the way I'm telling this story. And, yeah, but it is a fine line.
Right.
Okay.
I know if anybody don't got one, I do have one question and I'll leave it alone. Let's say if you were on the path for now, what's an artist or writer you would love to work with?
If I was on the what now?
Like maybe from back in the day that rest in peace, that are not here, or present, like someone that's a writer or maybe an artist that you would have loved to or would like to work with.
Yeah, I mean present people for sure, because again, like I didn't grow up with comics, so I don't have like necessarily like a classic like Silver Age like idols or anything, but I would love to work with Neil Gaiman. I would love to work with Brian K. Vaughan. Of course, everybody would, but that's, like, I can't not say that because that's just like, he's amazing, right? And I guess, I've already worked with Jeff Lemire and I think he's incredible. So like, I don't know, I feel pretty lucky. Like,
Nice.
You know, it's been a pretty cool career so far, and I'm just excited to see what happens next. You know.
Nice. That's awesome.
Awesome. All right, Miss Caitlin, I got one for you because Tempo's about to. He's still in the thunder over here. He's still in it. But what Zen advice for people interested in getting involved into comics on the creative side? What kind of advice can you give people?
So, like, you know, the thing is with comics or with anything that's like crazy competitive, like comics or acting or writing or anything like that, you know, it's luck has to have a part in it. It's just the way it is, right? Like it's not just like, you know, you do what you think is really great stuff and then you just get the job. It's not really like that. There are certain people you got to find or, you know, get them to see your stuff or whatever. Like I looked out because I had been I had like a 10-page thing that I had done. So that was okay. So that's good advice. So I would say do your own like comic that you're really proud of, maybe like a chapter of it, and if that feels like it can compete with stuff that you've seen that's already in the market, you feel like that you could see that next to other stuff that you've read, then just shop that around. When I got the Image gig, I was sharing my pages of this like 10-page thing I did called the Changeable Harper Finn. And it was about this changeling, and it was like a 10-page story. And I posted it everywhere. And Boom Studios had like a submission thing on their wall on Facebook. They were like, just submit your pages and we'll, you know, maybe we'll hire you. And I was like, well, like, you know, nothing to lose, right? So I posted some pages on there. And Sean Lewis was looking for artists, and there's no real way to look for artists either. There's like, you know, it's hard to look for work as an artist. It's hard to find artists if you're a writer. It's just like there's no clear place. So He was looking everywhere, and he found the Boom Studios submission thing. So he was like poaching, you know, he's like looking through their list of people, and he saw my work there, and then he sent me an email because he was working on Coyotes, and he thought the style would fit. So, you know, I wouldn't have gotten the gig if I hadn't made that 10-page piece and like sent it out everywhere if I could, you know. But I also really lucked out because he happened to see it, and he happened to have also done an Image book already, and we got, you know, a book deal. So
that is awesome.
Nice.
Okay.
You know, it's my dream right now. Hearing you, Caitlin, and I don't know if she was there at the time. I think you and Stephanie Williams would be a freaking like dynamic duo. Seriously.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Like y'all would kill it. I think you might blow everybody out the water. Y'all pretty cool. I think your styles would mesh. I don't know if you know Stephanie, but
I don't think so.
Yeah, she did some Nubia work on DC, so she's pretty.
Okay.
She was interested in that, but she's also written children's books as well and done some other stuff. So yeah,
I'll look into her.
Y'all too. Yeah, she's really cool. I had her for my virtual con recently, and she was phenomenal. So we're looking to interview her at future Back to Basics. So hopefully y'all get together. I think y'all will be killer. Both of y'all put together. So hopefully that will happen. Well, we wanted to also flip the script a little bit and give our audience, whoever is out there, to ask us questions. I know they've been asking us questions throughout in the chat, and most of them are just really excited to hear about what you're doing. But just wanted to put that out there for anyone who is listening and or watching. If you have any questions in the chat for Caitlin, please do so. If you want to ask about the weather over on her neck of the woods, she's all the way on the northwest at this point in time, so that's awesome. It is. I heard Texas is 20 degrees right now, or something like that, which is uncommon. There's a lot going on. So anyway, but I jest a little bit. But anything that you all want to ask in between, I will continue to ask questions because I actually have more. So for all of you who heard me at the beginning, I met Caitlin at the Baltimore Comic Con, and so I was really, really familiar with her work anyway. And as we were kind of like, I don't know how you felt about Baltimore Comic Con, but it's a manageable space. It's pretty dope. We have some pretty great creatives all around. But what I loved about Caitlin was one, the style and artwork, but also that she was genuine. And not to say that no one else is genuine at the Baltimore Comic Con, but she literally was actually, you were the first person to actually say, yeah, I'll jump on season 2 for our work. And I think I talked to you about how we approach this Q&A in this podcast. I noticed that your work is very into identity and maybe even some social justice issues as well. I just wanted to ask you, how important is that in kind of the comic book industry, if at all, especially, you know, with some of the topics that are kind of propping themselves up? I think for us, we've done some podcasts around mental health using the Heroes in Crisis. And we talked about the pandemic and Eve, the series Eve. And then we'll be talking about some other social justice issues in our 3rd installment of the Heroes in Crisis series. But I noticed in your work, it's really direct and also indirect in the way that you operate. So how important is that to kind of put that into comic books in the tradition that it's always been, but I think it's a little bit different now.
Oh, I think it's super important, super important. And like, you know, I didn't write any of the stuff in the past that I've worked on, except for this short story for Buffy that I did. But in general, yeah, I think it's super important. It's great that like comics in general has been changing so much that you're just getting any kind of story, which is awesome. It's like, you know, it's kind of a breath of fresh air, and I love being a part of that. I love, again, sometimes I feel a little bit weird. I'm like, should I be doing this? Because is this my thing to tell? Should somebody else do this? Like Black Hammer, I was like, should I be really drawing Black Hammer? I don't know. And then I was just like, no, but I mean, but it depends on, you know, like for me, I mean, I could be totally wrong, but I think for me, it was like, you know, it's her story. She happened to be Black as a character, right? But it wasn't about her Blackness. It wasn't about her history with being African American, you know. And so it kind of felt like she just happened to be a certain ethnicity, and it was, you know, it's not like I would never draw like a civil rights story, right? Like I would just be like, that is not my thing to tell. Like it's not my place in any way. So like, you know, there's definitely like certain places where I feel like this is my, like I can be part of this, and other things where I'm just like, this is for somebody else. And but yeah, I love different perspectives. I love you know, like one of my favorite young adult books was A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. And it's one of the first, if not the first, like fantasy where like nobody's white. There's like they're like a minority. They're like in some random island somewhere, and you don't really have any main characters like that. And like it wasn't even a big deal. It wasn't like a huge, you know, they weren't talking about it all the time. It was just, that was the world. And I just love that. I like the fact that you can have that in a story, and it's not pushing things. It's not like, you know, in your face. It's just like, these are just different people. It's like the Sandman, right? When they have the Desire character who's trans, or the actor is trans. And I just love that that's just the character. There's no, you know what I mean? It's I don't know how to, does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think it's important. I think you never know with the politics of comic books too, right? So a lot of folks are always have a difficult time with like maybe even thinking about alternate universes with different heroes being their retcon being kind of retold in a different light, in a different way. But I think that I also love to see new characters. That's why I think the indie industry is so cool, because they can do a lot of that stuff without people getting too angry. And I think it also allows people to see themselves in the comics books that they want to collect. Like, you know, I think a lot of the stuff you can't really speak about in detail in certain publishers, right? Whereas there's some other stuff that they have to deal with that's a little bit more critical or maybe traumatic, right? And engaging. Some of that is something that I find really amazing, that writers and artists can somehow be involved in that together and telling that story without necessarily objectifying or just like, you know, just changing scripts in a sense. So it's pretty cool.
Right.
I've seen a lot of that happening in the industry. I know during the movies, during the Marvel movies and so on and so forth, people were upset about Namor being called Namor, and that was interesting. But
the
I
Marvel
thought it was
movie
cool.
fandom can be pretty toxic, so you have to just kind of
Yeah.
take that with a grain of salt. But
Yeah.
but you know how like Miles Morales, in the Spider-Verse movies, like he's such a great character, and there was like some interview somewhere where like this family was watching and he spoke some Spanish to his friend, and he was like, "Oh my God, Dad, that's how we talk." And I was like, "Oh, like I love that," like it's kind of like opening up the world to like other people who are just like, "Hey, that's like me, that's like my family." Like that's so great.
Yeah, what's interesting? So I'm a diversity educator, at higher ed institutions, and one of the things that I also found out about Miles Morales is that his, I was like, wait, it made me think about kind of like gender roles almost, because the dad took the mother's last name, I believe. So when people ask why is his name Miles Morales and his dad is African American, but his mother's Puerto Rican, I think from what I've read, he actually took his wife's name as his name. So it's really interesting. There's a lot of stuff, hidden things that people don't really pick up on.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. Wow.
Yeah. So, but I'm interested to see more diversity for sure. Creation of, or even bringing back some of those characters, like the Milestone. I love the Milestone series, and looking forward to seeing more of that. I know independent publishing has been doing great. Not to toot my Puerto Rican horn, but La Borinqueña is one, which I think is a really cool book. And
what's it called?
La Borinqueña. So it's a book. It's basically, she's a superhero who is a eco superhero. So she kind of is protecting natural, kind of like was it Captain Planet?
Captain Planet.
Yeah. But she's actually crossed over to DC, and the Trinity has actually made it to her covers, which is kind of cool, and vice versa. So it's this cross pollination, which is really cool. But I'm looking forward to seeing more of kind of like the representation piece translate to the movies, and even animation, which would be really cool. So
yeah.
So I didn't mean to go into a professor mode with you.
No, it's fine. It made me think of Miss Marvel too. That was really great.
Yeah.
Like I was again, like it sounds cheesy, but I think it's sort of important, that kind of stuff, because a lot of people just don't have access, or not access, but they just don't have exposure to different kinds of people, especially in certain parts of the country, so it's really great for,
Yeah. And even was it the Green Lantern, when the movie came out, people were like, who is this Hal Jordan? This is not the Green Lantern I grew up with, right? It was, it was a different Green Lantern, and he was black. And so they were just like, John Stewart is my Green Lantern. So just to see that cultural shift in just a few generations is really interesting. So I'm excited to see what comics are. So speaking of which, where do you see comics going from here on out? Do you see indies kind of taking a huge chunk in the industry, since there's kind of like a oversaturation currently, or possibly even into like the Netflix streaming services that somehow, have been kind of co-opting, some of these properties?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of adaptations and things, that people are getting a little bit fatigued by the superhero world, but I could be wrong about that. Maybe it's just my friends. But we're, I think indie has everywhere to go. There's no limit, and there's no one box to put it in. So indie is just like everything that's not mainstream superheroes, you know what I mean? So I don't think that's going anywhere. I think that's just going to evolve and change and stuff. I don't know what's going to happen with the superhero world. I feel like it's the longest soap opera ever told, and I don't know how many more stories you can do, but it's, we'll see.
It's not a telenovela, that's for sure. At least with telenovelas, you knew 4 years to maybe 5 years, and it was done.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah. Then they went to another one, an offshoot. All right. Well, any questions? No questions out here. All right. So I'm sure we'll get some in our chat, but I wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart, and as a fan of yours, and I know everyone else who hopefully now you'll pick up all the books. But I know how do people basically connect with you via maybe even social media or even your website?
So I'm kicking myself for getting rid of my Twitter account like in summer. And I just like opened up a new one like yesterday. So I'm like back down to like, 5 people. But yeah, feel free to follow me on there because I'm going to start posting more on there. I'm on Instagram, as that's my biggest account. And I'm on Threads and Blue Sky as well. And I just started uploading my videos, like time-lapse videos of like drawing stuff to TikTok. So I'm on all the things, most of the things. But and it's all just my name as my handle, so it's just Caitlin Yarsky. So it's pretty easy to find.
Nice.
And if people wanted to purchase like Miss Ebony Keys, your stuff, how would they be able to get their hands on like original artwork? Because I saw a whole bunch of them, and I was like, I'm broke. Now I'm broke.
Okay.
So my original art reps are Cadence Comic Arts, and they're a company that deals with a lot of people. Jeff's on there, Jeff Lemire, and they have a website that sells original art pages. And I just had a commission. My commissions opened up last week, and I just got a bunch of slots for that. So they're the ones to reach out to for original art.
Awesome.
Nice.
Caitlin, I might have to talk to you offline because I have 3 comic books that I have written that I'm ready to publish at some point. In your work, I have it ready. It would be perfect for one of my stories. So hopefully we'll connect very soon. Caitlin, thank you so much on behalf of the team, Back to Basics Comic Book Podcast
Yes,
team.
thank
We
you.
are so geeked and excited, and I hope you had a great time. Thank you so much for volunteering your time to hang out with us and talk like we were in the living room.
Oh, this is great! Thanks so much for having me, and I hope I can come back when my creator own thing is ready to go.
Yeah.
No, seriously, you're
Definitely.
more than welcome. You're family now, so this is your home. Definitely feel reach out to us when it's all ready to go, and we'll help you kind of push it out, especially on our platforms. Each of us are pretty active on different platforms, mostly IG, but we also do TikTok. And we're venturing into YouTube and all that stuff that goes with like being a personality. So we're trying to branch out a little bit more and really hype up the people that we actually think are worth reading and following for sure. So Adrian says, are you going to produce a Kickstarter?
I have no plans to in the future, but it's not off the table. It depends on what happens next, what the next project is. But for now, I'm just working with Dark Horse and hopefully maybe Image again in the future. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
That's awesome. Now one last question, I promise you. So a lot of people go the route of when they put their books out, they do Kickstarter. You're working with a publisher. What does that do or free you up to kind of like make sure, obviously you have a publishing company that can do a lot more and you can just focus on the creativity, but what's that like, the pressures and all that stuff that goes with it? Because I'm sure as an indie publisher or independent publisher, you can work on your own schedule, but you still have the pressure of a Kickstarter per se pushing you in that direction to make sure you fulfill, some books. But what do you deem of the plus and minuses in this game?
I mean, there are deadlines. They're kind of loose right now because it's nothing's been announced yet or it has a hard printing deadline exactly. But with Dark Horse, they give a lot of time in their schedule, which is really nice. So I don't feel tons of pressure, and I feel like I can kind of explore styles and things a bit more. And it's pretty great. I mean, the only thing I'm worried about is marketing because marketing is just non-existent in comics. I don't know what the deal is, but there's just nobody does it. So I'm a little worried about that. I'm like, I know I'm going to have to basically be my own marketing person for this book when it's ready to be promoted.
Yeah,
so,
you got all of us.
Right. Exactly.
So I
had a
definitely
neon
would like
sign,
to
I would go like this.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it. Yeah, that would be. So I'll be doing a lot of talking on podcasts and trying to boost it myself. So that's the only drawback I think. It's like I would like it if there was somebody helping you with that, but it's not going to be. Not that they're not going to do anything, but it's definitely more on you than anybody else. So.
Yeah. I think it's a budget thing too, right? Like it's a different world now. So you kind of have to put it out there yourself, especially as a passion. But luckily you have friends in us and we'll make sure we'll push it out. And if we get our hands on it, maybe we can sell it also on our platform. Maybe we can buy a whole bunch of them and make it happen. So with some signs, as Miss Ebony Keys is looking like, yes, I need some SIGs on some of those comics. So
yeah, the only thing about that is if I get her SIGs, they're not going to be sold because I'll be putting them in my PC box and on my wall, and I'm like, yeah, these are all mine, you know.
Yeah. I have
are you coming back to Baltimore? Are you coming to any cons? Are you slated?
Oh
to do
yeah,
anything?
I mean my parents are in DC, so I'll definitely be coming back to Baltimore. I think. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Although I don't know when that is. Is that in the? That's in the fall.
September.
No.
It's September 20th to the 22nd.
Okay, gotcha.
And then
We'll
there's
be
Austin
there.
Con coming up
Cool.
soon as well. So yeah, we'll be there. So we'll have to do part 2, or as they say in France, part 2.
Part 2.
Caitlin, as we said, thank you so much for being part of our podcast and the experience. Hopefully everyone else got to connect with you, and hopefully they see you at cons and they can get your SIG and really chop it up with you and talk about not just comic books, but thank you for letting us into your world as a person and as a creative.
Thanks so much for having me. And and I'm going to be at Emerald City Comic Con coming up. So just FYI, anybody in the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, cool. Awesome. We'll make sure we push that out. Feel free to tag us in Instagram and we'll push it out on our networks. And, people will be like following you. So we appreciate all the time and effort that you do to make these stories look amazing. And we can't wait for your new project.
Yes.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Awesome. All right, y'all. Well, until next time, we will give you the schedule. Thank y'all. My name is Jen X.
I'm Miss Ebony Keys.
And your boy Tempos.
And we are back to basics, a comic book podcast. Peace out and have a great, great week.